to be with you on this great show.
Thank you. As we were discussing, it's well, at least for me, I should have asked you. It's a payday Friday for me. I don't know if it's a payday Friday for you.
It's every day a payday when I get to talk to people like you. So thank you very
Oh,
much for
there you
having
go. You warmed my heart, and I didn't pay him for that compliment, everyone. So very natural and
Should
organic.
I wink? No one can see, right?
Yeah.
Over.
So you're joining us to talk about relationships, divorce, and some of the reasons why it happens. I know in the online world, that seems to be a topic, especially amongst men who may feel that relationships are failing. They don't know why they're trying to navigate it. But before Adam, we jump into that, do me a favor, introduce yourself, tell my audience a little bit about who you are, and of course, where they can find you.
So my name is Adam J. Maddeny. I go by AJ, and I'm typically at Maddeny.com. So Maddeny. Towards that end, I did write a book. It's called Divorce Emergency Protocol. And, we can talk more about it, but it's really for those people who were surprised by their spouse telling them or announcing that they want a divorce.
So I guess my first question for you is, how did you get started writing this book, and what caused you to want to write a book about this topic?
I guess I started writing the book when my parents got divorced. So I'm a product of the 80s divorce framing of broken home. And it was like that because the lawyers at that point were different. Still, lawyers right now, they advocate and they try, but at least they're moving towards collaborative divorce. And of course, there's mediation, which is something I do as well. But seeing how divorce is no longer a the thing that it was, and it's now more of a transition. Most relationships, most marriages end with a divorce. 50% or just a little bit under that. But the second marriage and the third marriage, it goes to two and three and with a divorce. So it's really not fair to allow ourselves to be devastated to this extent. And of course, that would be contingent upon the governments and the court system. But there is something that we can do. And one of the things that we can do is try to take control of what is controllable, and one of those things is to have a good exit rapport with your spouse. So instead of fighting, which devastates both, it can include, in addition to the emotional side, the financial side, and that's never a good thing. And of course, the time that goes with it and the way it changes our perspective on life altogether if we fail ourselves. And the way that we fail ourselves is not taking control over those things that we can control. And hopefully, the other side would be amenable and willing to join us on that trip because it takes both to be able to come to a collaborative style divorce.
I know for me, I grew up without my mother and my father, and then when I was reunited with them, they divorced maybe 13 years after that. So it was 5 years without them, and then 13 years with them, and then they separated and divorced.
Mm.
For me, that wasn't a long time because I grew up essentially as a child without them, and then by the time I was united with them, it wasn't too much longer after they got divorced.
Mm.
But I remember in my family that divorce happened quite a bit, meaning that it wasn't an isolated situation. Do you find that sometimes well, actually, let me re-ask it this way. If a divorce happens often enough in a home or in a family setting, do the children of that family become desensitized, or how do they become impacted by the divorce?
The short answer is very specific to each case because if the parents are able to focus on the well-being of the children, then they will, instead of be desensitized, they would be immune to the negative effects of the transition. So it will become a transition. And of course, it creates a gap for the child. You know, there's instability, there's the idea of belonging, the new identity that they have to really adopt and try to negotiate within themselves. There was a time where there were the time that was uh, giving those kids more of a responsibility has passed in general, where the kids might feel responsible, but that doesn't mean that the kids don't feel responsible. You know, it was front and center at some point, but now it's receding in the background. I think we put it under the banner of the kids' well-being. But the reality of it, there is no easy divorce for the kids. It's just they're not part of the process. They are not consulted. They are not a decision maker, if you will. And those by themselves create anxiety.
I think that's sometimes what at least the people I speak with forget, is they think they're part of the equation where it's actually between the two people who are married, right? Like there's people who are impacted obviously outside of them, right? But it doesn't mean, hopefully, fingers crossed, that I'm divorcing your dad because the children are so bad. That
Yeah.
may happen, right? It may happen that the family dynamic, someone just can't handle it anymore. But how much, what do you think then could maybe help in general some of the other family members who are being impacted to the divorce to make sure that they're able to cope with it and handle the change in family dynamics going forward?
So we got to start from the beginning because at the end of the day, a marriage is a financial contract. And if we understand what it is, it's easier to deal with it when divorce, comes around. It is just breaking up that unit that is solely and primarily financial. When two people become a unit so that they can engage in financial transactions, they can accumulate debt, they can accumulate wealth. And when we break those things apart, they don't have to break the people that form the unit, the husband and the wife. And if we bring it down to that foundational point, it's easier to shield oneself from the pain and the suffering that goes with it. The only problem is that most people get into marriage and they allow themselves to melt into this unit, not from a financial standpoint, but from an emotional standpoint. And that is a disconnect that makes it very hard for anyone to go through a divorce, although we understand it for what it is as a contract. But the reality is it has that depth. And when you have kids, it becomes even more problematic because you can't prioritize your own feelings because you have to actually prioritize the kids. And that if you're able to do well and do good by the kids, you'll feel better. So most people have that orientation. But I've been seeing more and more couples who are coming to me later in the journey towards the end of the separation agreement. And during that time, if they are able to, they would have already broken up the financial obligations and responsibilities and rights through that year or 6 months worth of separation. So when they come to the mediation, it's much easier to define what needs to be defined for the court so they can just stamp it and then they become divorced. Many of the people as well, I've noticed in the last maybe 2 or 3 years that uh, some of the people that divorced during the pandemic did not file the divorce papers. And 2 or 3 years later, they come back and say, we need to update it because we're actually going to go through it now. So that was a very interesting observation for a few of the divorce cases that came to me. Um, Other than that, I think less and less people are divorcing because less and less people are marrying. So there is that correlation, although it's a rate of marriage, not the actual number. The actual numbers in the US, they're still increasing. But in reality, the percentage of the people, because there are more Americans, at least I can't speak to Canada, but the total number is higher. The rate is lower. I
I
don't
do
know.
remember.
That math can be a little bit hard to follow, but in reality, marriage is alive and well. Divorce is increasing just because people do make adjustments. They have open marriages. They have marriage by default, not in practice, so they're leading to different lives. There's a lot of other factors that come into play.
I do remember reading that where the amount of marriages was on the rise. But because there's more people, there's less people getting married, or there's people who are, and I think there's another one where people are waiting later on in life to get married the first time,
That is
right?
true.
And also, remember, I spoke to someone and they're like, Trin, I wish they made marriage training or training to understand your partner mandatory before you got married. And that raises a good point because, like, when we go to our job or work, I can't even tell you the amount of training that I've went through at my job and probably for you and everything, right? We go through all this training, but when it comes to a relationship, there's very little. It's like to your point, right? I like you, you like me. Okay, let's figure this out as we go on. We'll build it as we fly it.
Mhm.
Um, what are your thoughts on maybe some of the preparation at the earliest stages, since you mentioned the beginning of relationships that is lacking in the clients that you deal with? Or maybe that's just missing out on in their relationships at the early stages of it.
Yeah, yeah. There's a disconnect, right, between the reasons we get into marriage and the function of marriage. And a marriage was really a way to kind of define responsibilities between groups of people. We saw it in the Game of Thrones and stuff like that. People back in cave days, cavemen and cave women got together because they needed to survive. They needed each other. The a man would need a mate, and they need to produce a new person in the form of a child, so that if it's a boy, then he goes and helps the dad fight and get the mammoth or the saber-toothed tiger. And the mother will help with the children, the girls, and they cook, paint the cave, or whatever it is that the role would be, but it would be to make sure that there is a place of safety for the hunt to come back, for the party to come back. And that was just pure survivalism. And that kept the marriage. I'm not saying that the marriage at that time was great because, the life expectancy might have been 22 years of age, anyways. And so it wasn't nice, but it kept the people together because it served a